Are you having a hard time figuring out what to get Dad for Father's Day? Shop now at sportshistorynetwork.com/row1 and save 15% off your order when you check out Row 1 Brand's Vintage Sports Pictorium Gallery. They have America's best sports art. With over 7,200 historic sports prints, you're assured to find something unique for Dad this Father's Day. If he's an NFL buff, check out the 1963 vintage NFL helmet poster. Shop now at sportshistorynetwork.com/row1.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday's Sports on the Sports History Network. Last week, we discussed Part 1 on the issue of concussions and CTE in the NFL. I offered some suggestions on how the NFL might reduce the number of concussions. Today, I will continue with Part 2. I will begin with a question. Is the NFL season too long? The NFL hierarchy keeps telling us that they are doing all they can to reduce concussions and injuries. But playing 21 games in one season, as the Rams and Bengals did last season, hardly seems like an intelligent way to reduce concussions and injuries. From 1947 to 1960, league teams played only 12 regular season games. The NFL expanded to 14 regular season games from 1961 to 1977. The same number played by teams in the old American Football League. From 1978 to 2020, the NFL had a 16-game regular season schedule. Before the 2021 season, the league voted to expand the number of regular season games from 16 to 17 games. What about postseason play? From 1933 through 1965, the NFL had only one postseason game, the NFL Championship. During those 33 years, there were also 9 other playoff games, all tiebreaker contests. Then in 1966, the season ended with the usual NFL Championship game and the first Super Bowl. The AFL also had only one postseason game to determine the league champion. That changed in 1966 and 1967 with the Super Bowl. How many teams qualified for postseason play? In 1966, the NFL and AFL had 24 teams combined. Only 4 teams, that's 16.7%, qualified for postseason play. From 1967 to 1969, the NFL played 2 divisional playoff games in addition to the NFL Championship game and the Super Bowl. Then in 1968, the AFL had 1 divisional tiebreaker playoff game, the AFL Championship game, and the Super Bowl. The AFL expanded its postseason in 1969 to include 2 divisional playoff games, the AFL Championship and the Super Bowl. After the leagues merged in 1970, each conference, NFC and AFC, had 2 divisional playoffs and 1 championship game. That system continued through the 1977 season. In 1977, 28.6% of the league's teams qualified for the playoffs, and that seemed just right, in my opinion. But then, in 1978, 2 more postseason games were added, called wildcard games, which increased to 10 the number of playoff teams, 36% of the league teams. That postseason format continued through the 1989 season. From 1990 through 2019, the league added 2 more teams to the playoff bracket, which brought the playoff total to 43% of the franchises. More expansion came in 2020, when 2 more teams were added, upping postseason participation to 44%. So let's compare the total number of games played then and now. In 1960, the Green Bay Packers and Philadelphia Eagles went all the way to the NFL championship game. Philadelphia won, and each team played 13 games that season. By contrast, participants in this year's championship game, the Rams and Bengals, played 21 games each. That's a huge difference. To its credit, the NFL has decreased the number of preseason games to 3 from what had been 6 preseason games decades ago. Still, one could argue that most injuries didn't happen in preseason contests. After Joe Namath severely injured his knee in a 1971 preseason game, most coaches have kept their best players off the field for a good share of preseason games. While I do not doubt that the league is concerned about players' injuries, it also seems that the seemingly endless appetite for NFL football and the revenues that come with it has overreaching implications. It propels an ever-expanding season schedule, including creating more playoff opportunities for more teams, which adds to more teams playing more games. At issue is whether we've seen the last of regular season schedule expansion and growth in the number of playoff competitors. I recently watched the movie Concussion. There is no happy ending to this movie. It's unfortunate to see how many former players are suffering from CTE. While I can certainly sympathize with what they are going through, I don't think we can point all the blame at the NFL hierarchy. The NFL is a money-making machine, of that there is no doubt, and they should be doing all they can to help these players in need. But to say they had full knowledge of the long-term damage a concussion could cause is probably neither true nor fair. There were so many things that we as a society did not know years ago, or at the very least we ignored. If you were a 1970s kid, then you get what I'm saying. Safety was not something we thought about much. Football was no different. The head slap, spearing, the clothesline, the chop block, head hunting, cheap shots, and late hits were all commonplace in the NFL. No one knew or thought about the long-term effects or how they might suffer later in life. Can it be proven that head trauma was from football and football alone? It's hard for me to grasp that concept because it was unheard of years ago. I don't recall hearing former players complaining about severe headaches and memory loss. There may have been a few cases, but it was pretty rare. I remember when Roger Staubach and Al Toon retired from the NFL, due in part to concussions. But I never heard about the problem in youth or high school football. What has changed? Maybe it's just that we know so much more today than we did years ago. Some will say the players knew the risks they were taking. But did they really? Some say they were all well compensated for playing, and that's true. It's also true that some players blew their money on poor lifestyle choices and didn't invest wisely or prepare for life after football. But the fact remains that they put their bodies on the line, week after week, year after year, not only for the respective teams, but for the league too. You would think that the NFL, a multi-billion-dollar operation, would feel some obligation to assist these players, especially those suffering from CTE.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings you sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorium Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.